Okay, you ready to start? Okay, so good. So the first half of the night, you're resolving the questions that can't be answered by sleeping through it. Why? Because during that time, Amunah is at its smallest. Then you wake up in the middle of it when the Amunah starts to grow again. That's Chatzot. That's why Moshe went out and killed the Egyptians, right? At night at Chatzot. Why? Because that's the beginning of the destruction of the things that are hurting your Amunah. And that builds da'at at that moment. So that's the time that you can actually resolve questions that can be answered. This internalized knowledge and answers of Hashem enables you to find those questions that can be resolved. So these are the two aspects of Emunah. And then Rav Natan says, when you have this strengthening of Emunah through the da'at that you get in the second half of the night, then you're going to be able to pray with fervor and kavanah. And I actually had a very fiery shachrit this morning after I did Tikkun Chatzot last night. Very good. Okay? I got it. You're bitter about the whole situation. I can see it. Okay. Blame it on the. Okay. Not on the eitzes. Okay. I wasn't born yesterday. Okay. So good. He's brings up the same halacha again. You need to strengthen yourself like a lion. Get up in the morning. That you are going to awaken the shachar, okay? And then there's this lesson in Likutei Mohoran, which is Simon Samech Bet, and he says there, like this. It's explained there, it's clarified there. Sheyesh chiluk bein kushot. There are two types of kushas, difficulties that people have in their emunah. Ki yesh kusha, there's one type of kusha, one type of difficulty. She'achor adam lavi teirutz ad kusha zo. That he's going to be able to understand and chop the answer when he gets it. That's one type of difficulty, right? You have a question in emunah. Why is it Hashem does this to these people? And then you hear an answer in the shiur. He does this actually to bring you closer to him, and that resolves it for you. You're able to live with that. You're able to internalize that. That boosts your emunah. That's one type of kusha. That's one type of difficulty. You don't get it. Okay, very simple. You've had questions to me about why you've been through things in your life in the past couple of years. I gave you some answers. You felt good about those answers? You feel good. So those are kushiyas, those are difficulties that can be answered. You just didn't get the answer yet. Now you got it. You feel good about it. And that helps your emunah. That boosts your emunah. That's half of your emunah. What about the other half? Well, let's get there in a second. Where do we see this? In Pirkei Avot it says, Dam ma shetashiv. Know what to answer the apikourses. Know what to answer the heretic. So most people read that as know what to answer the Jew who doesn't really believe. When he comes up to you and he questions you, know what to answer him. Rav Nachman doesn't read it like that. Know what to answer the heretic in your heart. Every single Jew has within him a part that doesn't believe. You need to know what to answer that part of you. The part of you that questions, when the tzaddikim say, do this, it's good for you, but it doesn't make sense to you, or when Hashem does something to you and you feel like you're putting in this much, Hashem should help you more, right? Those are kushiyas in your heart. And that part of you is a heretic. And your ability to be able to grow to full emunah is that you need to know how to answer him. That's what Pirkei Avot is saying. This is what Nachman says. Yes, Kia Emet, because the truth is, Mashid Gabir Hashem Yiparach Shesecha Anoshi Shilchal Ravina. Whatever Hashem has given us that we are able to understand, Hu mitzvah gedola lechader haseichel lavina davar al boryo. It is a very great mitzvah for him to sharpen his mind to be able to understand that thing. So this is a very big misconception about Rabbi Nachman's Torah, which makes me cringe. Like I have a student who just started learning Rabbi Nachman's Torah from New Jersey, and he's pushing it. He's doing Hipodidut every day, and he's trying to take on a lot of the stuff that we're doing. And at first, the Hipodidut was very hard for him, but now he said it's becoming very sweet for him, and he's starting to feel a change in it. Like a lot of us, that we get past that threshold, you push it, and you get there. Good. So he told me that his rabbi told him he loves Breslov. He says Breslov's good, but with da'at. Meaning, yeah, you should do Breslov. Everybody should be Breslov, but with da'at. Insinuating that Breslov is like doesn't have da'at. It's a very good tool for your spiritual life to connect to Hashem. It's a very valuable tool, but you just need to add.
You need to be grounded first.
You need to add Torah da'ah to it. You need to add truth and knowledge and grounded consciousness and understanding. Okay, so this is a huge misconception. The majority of Rav Nachman's Torah is dealing with da'at. Maybe even more than Amunah. And Rav Nachman himself said that there's 3 mitzvahs that it's a mitzvah gedola. We've said this many times, but again, it's worth mentioning now. One of those 3 is that you need to understand whatever you can understand to the best degree that you can. Whatever is within your grasp, within your intellect to understand and answer to in the Torah, you need to understand it as well as you possibly can. Okay? He says this is a mitzvah gedola. So he said this is those questions that are resolvable. You just haven't got them yet. So you have to toil for those answers. This is a mitzvah gedola. But on this it says you need to know what to answer the apikoursis. Okay. However, aval yesh kusha she'enu be'efshari le'seichel ha'enoshi lavin teirutz al kusha kazo. And this is where people do know about Rav Nachman. That when you don't have the ability to understand the answer to one of the questions in your heart, and when it comes to Amunah, Rak latid lavo, that you're only going to understand this in the future. When Mashiach comes, asur. It's asur for you to try and delve into figuring out that answer. Okay? So you see this is a very big difference. And it seems like there's a very small line between the two. Whatever you can understand, you need to try to understand with everything that you have. But anything which is beyond your mind, you shouldn't spend 1 iota of a second even contemplating it's a sore.
Just skip through it.
It's not allowed for you to think about these
Is that
things.
basically like believing in false belief? You shouldn't even get into that thought.
That's why he says don't read philosophy, don't read all these things, because you have.
This point you're making.
Yeah, because he's going to say in that Torah in Samech Bet that a lot of the philosophers, their questions are actually very good. The issue is that those questions come from what's called the Halal Panui, the vacated space. That in the beginning of creation, before Hashem created the universe, he first took all of his light and he removed it for a moment, so that now there's an empty space so that he can create in this space. It's a very big concept in Kabbalah and Chassidut. And in that space, he created all of the universes. Everything is in that space, that empty space. But what's the issue? How can there be a space that's empty of Hashem? And the answer is, it's a paradox for us right now. But when Mashiach comes and our minds expand, it won't be a paradox anymore. It's only a paradox because our mind is limited. Okay? So Rav Nachman says all of the philosophers' questions, they're actually very good questions. They're just coming from the vacated space. And therefore they can't be answered right now. It's impossible to answer that question right now. Not that it doesn't have an answer, there's just not that answer right now.
And that's what we should know what to answer the heretic.
So for that person, you shouldn't, it's not the answering of the heretic. It's not just a waste of time, it's very damaging to your faith because it's impossible to answer that question right now. And he says that they think that they're so smart because they figured out these questions, and because there's no answer, they don't believe it. He says it's the greatest foolishness. Because they're removing themselves from having a Munah in Hashem simply because there is something that's beyond their intellect right now which will be resolved in the future. Therefore he says, what should he do? When someone who relies on his intellect to go into those questions says, you know what, I'm pretty smart. Maybe I can delve into those philosophical questions. Maybe I can answer that person. Right? Maybe I can figure that thing out. So with this, he brings a pasuk from Mishlei. It says, Kol ba'el lo yeshuvun. All who go to her don't come back.
It's like the people who,
What? Very dangerous.
it's like the people who think they're strong enough to go and the car people now or go into the darkness.
What? What do you want to know? Kol ba'eha lo yeshuvun. What is he speaking about? He's speaking about a prostitute. He's saying don't go with the prostitute because there's no coming back after that. Okay? But Rav Nachman is teaching who's the greatest prostitute? Secular wisdom. Don't go there because you're not coming back. And you know what's funny?
Basically, they're raping our kids.
There's many people, right, who for their taivas, they fall in their faith for a little bit and they fall in their spirituality and they get back up. But you'll notice that there was a whole group of Jews in the 1800s They fell to secular wisdom, and that was it. They haven't been back for over 200 years. Yes. That's what we learned in the last story. He fell asleep for 70 years. What does that represent? A whole lifetime. Right. So he says that's not a question you should be trying to answer, because that question comes from a paradoxical space for us. By the way, this is a very good thing. You could show them that Torah. That's not an answer to the question, but you could show them that Torah. Okay? Ki akusha kazo esor. It's a sore to think about this for a moment. Rak la'amid al amuna. Why? He must stand firm in his amuna. Va'afilu ela kushot sheyesh aleim tshuva. And even regarding those questions that do have an answer, meaning it sounds like there's just two separate things. You have the questions that don't have an answer. You have the questions that have an answer. I just haven't gotten it yet. So it sounds like these ones I need to just go full force. This one I shouldn't approach at all. But he said even these questions that they do have an answer, he said you need to know where you're holding. Why? It sometimes happens that the pathways of your intellect become blocked. And you do not know how to respond to such a question. Meaning your friend or your family member asks you a question which there is an answer to. But you're not holding by that answer right now. And what happens to you when you fumble and bumble over that answer? Your emunah gets hit. Even though in truth a big enough person could answer those questions, at this moment you can't. So you have to become expert in where am I holding? What can I answer right now? And what should I leave alone? Because what happens is, he says that when people ask you these questions and you're not in the spot to answer that question, it takes a very big hit on your faith. On account of this, he says, the atheism, which is that question is rooted in, is injected into you. Like when the Nachash injected his atheism into Chava. This sort of atheism exists in everyone, and in each person relative to his level. What is he saying? He's saying a very deep, very simple point. Whatever degree that you have a blemish in your faith, to that degree, you have atheism within you. To whatever degree you have a blemish in your emunah, to that degree you still have atheism within you. Why? Because what is a blemish in emunah? What is emunah? I believe in God, that God's the one who does everything. Everything comes from Hashem. Everything is for the best. So whenever I have in my life, and we all have this, moments or situations or concepts which we don't really fully believe this is really Hashem, that part of you is an atheist. Does that make sense?
That's an external part.
Whatever I'm not saying that's who you are, but that part of you that you're dealing with is your Yetzer Hara. It's called the atheist within you. Okay. It's pretty simple. One, however, we learn that one needs to serve Hashem with both his inclinations, right? Like we learn in Masechet Brachot, Kol Levavecha, all both your hearts. In truth, he says, if a person could really if a person could really internalize that Hashem's kavod fills the whole world, meaning that that Hashem, Hashem's presence fills all of existence. No matter where you look, no matter where you think, no matter what situation you're in, Hashem is there in a way that you can't possibly imagine. If you really, really, really understood Mechap that when you come to pray, Hashem's mom is standing over you and is listening to every single breath and word that comes out of your mouth, you would surely pray with unbelievable energy and enthusiasm. You will be extremely meticulous about concentrating on every word that comes out of your mouth. But in general, because a person usually does not know this with his whole heart, he is neither fervent in his prayers, nor is he meticulous about them.
Standing there all day.
What are you saying?
Nothing
Did you hear what he just said?
I'm trying to be ignorant.
No, listen to what he's saying. When you come to pray, Amidah, do you feel that Hashem is up there and you're trying to connect to that? Or do you feel that Hashem is standing right in front of your face, listening to your prayers? Which one is it? He's up there. That's how we think. So all of the Hasidic masters are telling you based on the Baal Shem Tov, don't think that. What's
that thought process is heresy anyway.
I understand. So he's trying to kick it out. What's his name? There was a famous Kohen. He was a very big Hasidic master. His name was Sadoka Cohen, Rav Sadoka Cohen, okay? He has many numerous sefers, and he was a very big genius in Torah, and he was a big Hasidic master. And he says, when you say Baruch Atah, you know what you're saying? Not just that you are, but that you are standing in front of me right now. He says that by the time you get to Atah, and you internalize Atah, you're the one who's giving me this, you shouldn't be able to function. That's why when you watch videos of like Hasidic masters, they go Atah, 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 and then they almost pass out. You're here. You're like we're saying that you're the source of everything. You are the source of everything. When a person internalizes this in his heart, in his mind, in his soul, you shouldn't be able to function normally. So then what should you do? We obviously are not at this level, but at our level, we need to get to the highest level of this. That when you're praying, you should not feel that you're praying to Hashem up there. Because that's called heresy. That's called atheism. You need to pray as if Hashem is right in front of you, listening to every single word. I understand, but just the main thing he says is with tefillah. The main thing he says with tefillah. And he said, and Rav Nachman actually said that if people who are in Gan Eden right now, right, who moved on to the next world, he said, I promise you, if they had another moment in this world, they would all pray very differently. They would all pray very differently. Okay? He said all of this is due, why? To the concealment of the knowledge of Hashem's imminent presence, right? We believe in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that Hashem transcends the world, that He exists, that He runs everything from above, so to speak. But we do not see the Shekhinah, that's the exile. The exile is not of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the exile is of the Shekhinah. What's the difference? HaKadosh Baruch Hu is that He exists, but He transcends reality. That's who we usually pray to. But there's also the Shekhinah, that Hashem's here with you right now in a more real way than you exist. He's more real than you are. But we don't chop that when we pray. Why? Because that's in exile. And he says, where does this come from? He comes from the concept of machloket. Most people think of machloket between people. But Nachman says the greatest machloket is in your own heart. Because there's a part of you that believes in Hashem completely. There's a part of you that's very pure. There's a part of you that wants to give yourself over to that, that's investing in that wants so much to connect to that. But then there's another part of you that has been brainwashed by the secular world. And it is a complete stira and contradiction, and the greatest machloket is in your own heart. This is the war between the Yur Yetzer Tov and Yur Yetzer Hara. That's why the pasuk says in Hosea, "Chalak libam," their heart is divided. This is the concept of the kushiyot. These difficulties are in your heart. Why? Because the pathways of his intellect have become blocked. His mochin is in exile. His da'at is in exile, usually due to taivas, to wasting seed, right? To secular wisdom. So therefore his mind is in the gutter. So he doesn't know what to answer the own heresy in his own heart. He has nothing to say to himself when he's coming to pray, to talk to Hashem, to do it, and he has no words coming out. He doesn't have to say to himself, Benjamin, wake up. Hashem is right here. He's right here. Stop with the foolishness. You can't answer yourself that because your mind is in exile.
How do we get ourselves out of it?
The way to remedy this is machloket. I'll pay you after class. The way to remedy this machloket, very interesting. How do you do it? Listen to what he says. Machloket, he says, is actually rooted in a very, very high spiritual place. He does this. This is a very big Hasidic concept. It comes from the Baal Shem Tov. Every single thing that's negative in this world is rooted in something very holy. Our job as Jews is to bring it back to that source. We're saying that money at our level is something we should hate. However, at its source, it's very, very holy, and we want to connect to that. It says machloket, which is the most destructive thing that there can be, at its source is very, very holy. He says, what do we need to do in order to resolve the machloket in our heart, which is fallen machloket? We need to connect to holy machloket. Where do we find that? He says, when you study, post-gay tshuva, that you need to study the codes of Jewish law and the machloket between the sages about what is the halacha. He says that this is really the root of machloket. It comes here, and this is very holy, and Hashem loves this. Yes. That you learn the Shulchan Aruch, and you see all the different opinions, and you get to a resolution, you get to a Pesach Halacha. He says somehow there's a mechanism. You lift up machloket from exile, you bring it back to its place, and you resolve the machloket in your heart. This gets you out of the machloket in your heart. It resolves the pagam of your emunah. Yeah.
Isn't that what the first and second Luka represent? Steers?
We need to lift it up. Gemara also. When you learn Gemara, but he says specifically halacha. Why? Because the Gemara, you're not going to come to a Pesach necessarily. He says the way that the machloket is fixed in your heart is by studying the machloket at its source and then coming to a Pesach halacha. Right? That's right. That's the whole point. No, but when you learn the commentaries, you are going to see the different opinions. And then he comes to the Pesach halacha. Right. That's why when he says learn Shulchan Aruch, it doesn't mean learn Kitzer. I mean, no, I'm just saying. It means learn what the Torah says, learn what the Rosh says. Yeah, learn the different opinions. Learn what the different shitas are and come to the Pesach. He says this is going to remedy the machloket in your heart. Its source, holy machloket, which is machloket in Torah. Arguing in Torah is very holy.
And arguing with people is the complete opposite.
Yeah.
That's why he said don't argue with the heretic.
Right. And in fact, Rav Nachman says in this Torah something crazy. I forget exactly the Lashon, but something to the effect of when rabbis fight on Torah, right? When they're fighting, they have two different opinions on Torah and they're fighting over it. They're keeping the existence of the world going. That if there was not this holy machloket, the world would go into tohu vavohu. It would go back into like the beginning, something crazy. I don't know. We can look at it inside. Anyway, it's a very holy thing. It keeps the existence of the earth going, and therefore we need to learn machloket at its source, in the truth, in the Torah. Okay, this somehow will fix your heart. Odecha b'yosher, like it says, I will praise you b'yosher levav, with a straight heart. How do I get this? B'lamdi mishpatei tzikecha, by studying your laws. So it's an open pasuk. So he's saying that the pasuk is teaching you when you study the laws of Judaism, of Torah, this is going to give you a yosher levav, a straight heart. Aval kushiyot, however, those difficulties that there's no answers for, it's a sort to look at them, rak lechazeh et atzmo be'emunah. Rather, you need to strengthen your emunah completely and not rely on your intellect whatsoever. This goes back to the first Torah we learned in Likutei Mohoran, Yaakov and David. That you have a mitzvah that when you're able to understand, you have to be like Yaakov and you have to toil for that answer. However, when you cannot understand, you need to be like David and you need to nullify your mind and rest completely on Amunah. Yes. Take him. But also in your life, you have to know when do I need to be like Yaakov, when do I need to be like David.
I was saying that the night is dafka when you're supposed to be like David.
And Rav Nachman says in the fourth Torah, you need to be baki in halacha. So on a simple level, what does he mean? Seems you need to know halacha, but what does he mean on a deeper level? You need to know how to go up and down. You need to know how to go run and return. That's what he says there. Meaning what? You need to know when to be like Yaakov and when to be like David, and you need to know how to be proficient at both. A lot of people, he says, they know how to run really well. When their consciousness is on, they got a good night's sleep, everything's going well at home, they can steig away and they can run like crazy.
They can believe Hashem when they see Him.
Yes, but then when they can't, they fall apart completely. And he says some people, they can't run at all, they have difficulties learning that, but they have simple emunah, and they can be like David, and they can really connect to emunah shlema and understand in those moments. Rav Nachman says every Jew needs to become an expert in both. Part of the way you do that is by learning halakha. Part of the reason why it's called halakha is because it's teaching you how to walk. How to walk when you're like this, how to walk like that.
Maybe that's what it means to follow your heart.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
That's right. Like the Torah aspect, which is the apple.
Yeah.
And since the
Hara is the questions. You nullify them with David. Yeah. Yes, that's right. Very good. And when a person has complete emunah, meaning he's free of all questions and doubts, then his eating has a power to affect a yichud between Hashem and the Shekhinah. Meaning he's trying to say that as soon as your emunah is complete, every little thing that you do has tremendous effects on all the spiritual worlds. Okay. We are going to pause here.
Yeah, you want to pause it?
Yeah, you enjoyed? No. Like, we're going to pause it and move on to the next one. I'm not going to do Rav Nachman's stories tonight because I want to finish this Torah. We've been working on it for like 3 weeks. And I gotta finish it. I'm gonna lose my mind. Okay? I'm not reviewing it again right now. I'm not reviewing. You guys have been here. If you haven't, nebach on you. Okay? You can't just move to Jamaica States, man, and be like, everything's tubular, bro. Come every few weeks now with a tan. No. Beachfront tanning salon, not kosher, bro. Just kidding. Okay, ready? So what we're going to do now is we're going to finish this Torah. Everybody needs to focus because what we're going to do now is we're going to read a piece of Gemara. This is actually the Gemara I'm currently learning right now, thank God. It's Ta'anit. It's a little bit later though, okay? There's a lot of stories about one special fellow, which I connect to very much. His name is Choni Amagal. Choni, the circle maker. There's a famous story about him, about how they didn't have any water in Israel. They needed it to survive. There was a complete drought. And Choni was known for his Hibodedut sessions. And they came to him, even though people didn't want to hang out with him normally. Now they need Hashem. So they came to the Hibodeduter and they told him, okay, now we need you, Choni. We come out to the field and just start praying to Hashem. Help us out. We need you. He goes, okay. He gives them an eitzah. Go take your stuff, put it back in. I got you. He goes in the middle and he says to Hashem, Yiparach, I need you. Bring the water. No answer. And when I read this, I got the chills. When I read this, I got the chills because I did this. I did this myself. And I had the greatest miracle of my life because of this. I have a very strong connection to this. I remember I started crying. Then the Choni says, it's open in the Gemara. Choni says, I'm not leaving here until you bring this rain. I remember it from the hospital, I started crying and I was like, wow, unbelievable. Yeah, same exact thing. Literally the same Lashon. He said, I just crying. Wow, almost 2,000 years ago, the same person, the same thing. And it starts to rain a little bit. And Choni says, no, that's not what I asked for. He said, I want a lot of rain. A lot of rain.
Wait, what if you have that feeling like you're...
Wait!
It's because of me that happened.
What?
Right? Meaning, no, it was my feel that. That's the type of gava, no?
It's not gava. No. It's not gava. If you think that tefillah is because you're special, so yeah, it's gava. But Choni prayed and the rain came. It was because of him. Obviously, if Hashem doesn't want to, it's not going to rain. Make it rain. Okay, so what happened? So Choni said, no, I want more rain. I asked for more rain. And then all of a sudden, the rain comes like torrential pouring. They have flood, and they had to start leaving their homes. And then Choni said, no, it's not what I asked for. Rain that's good. Rain that's good for us. Then it started to rain normally. And then they came out, and the rabbi, the tzaddik of the generation, came to him, and he said, if I didn't know you, I would put you in harem. Why? You can't just speak to Hashem like that. You have to do this or else. You don't talk to Hashem like that. Holy chutzpah. I said, but because I know you and I know it's coming from a pure place, you're good. You're good. You have to know yourself, right? Yeah, you have to know yourself. Okay. So now we have another story of Choni and Mago in the Gemara. We're going to read this Gemara inside together. We're going to have to figure this one out. And you're going to see how the entire Gemara is alluded to in the story of the lost princess. It's all in this Gemara. And the whole Torah that we've been working on for 3 weeks now. Torah Samach, about the money, about the Yira, about the deepest revelations of Torah, about the wealth. All in this one Gemara. You ready? Let's do it. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan said, Kol Yemei Shor Torah Tzadik. All the days of that tzaddik. Who is he speaking about? Choni Amago. Choni the circle maker. Amar mi ika danyem shivin shanin. He said, Choni Amago said, is it possible for someone to sleep 70 years? Is it possible? No. But does anybody remember in The Lost Princess, he slept 70 years? Okay, so now we're going to see it's connected. What happens? Choni had been perplexed by an issue. What was the issue? There's a pasuk in Tehillim, Song of Ascent. We said when Hashem returns the captivity of Zion, we're going to be like dreamers. Ashkenazi said this in Birkat Hamazon before they start. We're going to be like dreamers. And it's interesting because at the end of Tikkun Chatzot, you say this. You cry over the Beit HaMikdash, you cry over all of your suffering, the suffering of Jewish people for thousands of years, and then you say at the end, we're going to be like dreamers. It's like this beautiful, like Hashem telling you, it's going to be okay in the end. Like, I know you're crying right now and you're suffering, but in the end, you're going to see it. It's all a dream. It's like a dream. What? Yeah, like an empathy note. Don't worry. Choni wondered, is it possible for someone to sleep 70 years that the Torah is equating the 70 years of exile to a dream? Meaning, Hashem is saying that your whole life is going to be like a dream. But is that possible that you could be sleeping for 70 years? This is Choni's question. So that's why he says this. Yes. Once while traveling, he was traveling along the way. He noticed a man. What was he doing? He was planting a carob tree. A carob tree. A carob tree. Anybody ever seen a carob? Yeah. You know what a carob is? He's planting a carob tree. Amarle, he said to him, so Choni said, this tree does not bear fruit for 70 years. A carob tree doesn't bear fruit for 70 years. He says, Lo ta'in, pashita la chayita shivin shanim. Is it so obvious to you that you're going to live 70 years to eat from it? Why are you planting this tree? It doesn't make any sense.
Go figure.
V'achat minei, that you're going to eat from it. How do you know? Amarle, the man said to him, Ana almer bechorba ashkachte. I found a world with carob trees. This is his response. I found a whole world only with carob trees. Ki hechi dishtale li ahavati. Just as my father is planted for me, I too, ananami shalti livnai. I'm planting for my children. I'm not planting for myself to eat. I'm planting for my kids to eat. Remember what we said about Yira? It's an inheritance. I'm not toiling my whole life because I'm going to be able to taste the fruit maybe of all of the work. I'm doing it so my kid's going to have it easy. So I'm going to give my kid a muna. Okay? I'm willing to go through the 70 years of exile and toil so I can give my kids all of it. One of my prayers to Hashem all the time is, give my kids all of my good and please don't give them any of my difficulties. Give them the emunah that I have acquired over all of this time through all of my difficulties, but please Hashem, don't have them go through the same things. Okay? Good. Yativ v'kakare rifta. Choni sat down to eat a meal. Interesting, no? Achale shintam. He got very tired and he fell asleep. V'hadra le mishnute. Sleep overcame him. V'chse me'ena. As he was sleeping, a grotto formed around him. You know what a grotto is? It's like a marshland. Yeah. Water collects in an area, it becomes like a swamp, whatever. For the sake of understanding, it's like a swamp. A swamp starts to gather around him as he's sleeping. And as a result, nobody saw him because the grotto was covering him. How long did he sleep for? 70 years. When he woke, he noticed a man eating from that carob tree. And he said to him, do you know who planted this carob tree? Do you know who planted this carob tree? Hey guys, do you know who planted this carob tree? He asked him. He answered, my grandfather. So Choni said, surely I must have slept 70 years. He saw his donkey, which had given birth to several generations of mules. Okay. This is the story in the Gemara. Listen to what Nachman says. Okay, so let's wait. Meaning what? Birth to birth. She was pregnant with the male, which afterwards impregnated her so that she again gave birth. Whatever, okay. Choni Amago, Rav Nachman says, he was Gadol Ma'od. He was very great. As the sages said in the same passage, when Choni would enter the Beit Midrash, he would solve for the rabbis any question they had. Anybody came to a question, he always had an answer. He just seemed to always have an answer. Choni Amago. Thus he asked, is it possible for anyone to sleep 70 years? What do we learn this means in The Lost Princess? Can someone fall asleep and fall away from all 70 faces of the Torah? Can someone become totally disconnected from his soul? Totally disconnected from the wisdom of the Torah. For although it's possible to fall from one face or more, Choni was having difficulty. Can a person really sleep his whole life? Meaning, can a person doesn't connect to Hashem at all, his whole life? Is that possible? He noticed a man planting a charuv, a carob tree. He said to him, it's so obvious you're going to live 70 years to eat from it. Charuv is a concept of atik, elder, meaning you can only get it after many days, lengthened days. This is because the charuv alludes to the cypress trees, which are the aspect of Mordechai. This is Mordechai, who is the concept of Rav Chesed, abundant kindness. Why? Because Rav Chesed is the same numerical value as Mordechai. He is the Rav Chesed. He represents Atik, meaning he represents very high spiritual revelation. What was the concept of the Torah that we're learning? You need the greatest amount of wealth to learn the deepest possible Torah. And in order to wake people up from your sleep, you need the deepest secrets that come from Atik, ancient times. That's the concept of Mordechai. This is what he did for the Jewish people in Purim, which is really our story. Our story at the end of time is Purim. That the tzaddik at the end is going to wake us up with the deepest possible Torah. This is Mordechai, okay? Yes, he's the one who gives it over. In other words, he noticed someone telling stories from ancient times. That's what it meant that he was planting the carob tree. And he came over to him and said, it really makes sense to be teaching Rabbi Nachman's Torah. Teach him a black Gemara. Do you hear what's happening? He says to him, you see a guy is not religious. You're planting a 70-year-old tree for him. Why are you planting him such an old tree? Give him a tree he can handle now. What are you giving him trees from Kabbalah, from ancient times? Why are you teaching him all of this? Is it so obvious you're going to live 70 years? Meaning, is it so obvious to you that you didn't try already teaching him simple, teach him shot, teach him basic, and then go and teach that stuff so that he can eat from it? The man answered him. He says, even if I tell stories from ancient times, I can induce the aspect of forgetfulness so that if he's not worthy, he's not going to remember. We learned in the Torah that when you include the deep wisdom in stories, like Rabbi Nachman's stories, that means what's going to happen is the person who hears it, if he's not worthy, he's not going to remember what he learned anyway.
We should still tell it over.
Yes, but you need to enclose it. You can't just give over a deep, deep Kabbalah to people. That's the whole beauty of Chassidut. Chassidut is taking the deepest Kabbalah and enclosing it. Even when you learn Tanya, even when you learn Likutei Mohoran, that has been enclosed so many times over. This is not a Zohar. You don't understand how deep the Zohar is. It's like science. What they're giving you when they make you practical teachings based on Kabbalah has been enclosed many times over. That is to protect you, and that's to protect the teacher, and that's to protect the Jewish people. But you need it, Rav Nachman says, you need it. Just as my father is planted for me, I too am planting for my children. Meaning, just as I was born by these stories, meaning I wake up from these stories, so too I'm going to tell them over. Rav Nachman explains like this. There's a very special thing that we all have the capacity to do, okay? The tzaddik has the ability to wake us up, which he's doing. But Rav Nachman said something amazing. When Malchut is woken up, meaning taken out of exile, the Baal Tshuva is taken out, the convert is taken out to the teachings of the tzaddik. What happens is that he himself is connected to a lot of sparks of Kedusha that are hidden in exile. Only he is. And as soon as he comes out, he has the opportunity to take all of those with him as well. It's like a chain reaction. The tzaddik lights up one Jew, and that one Jew lights up a whole contingent of sparks. So he's saying that my grandfather did this for me. Meaning, just as I was born by means of telling old stories, I'm also going to tell these stories over. He's the Baal Tshuva who came back through Chassidus, so he teaches Chassidus over. I'm not going to teach them Gemara, even though I know it now, because Chassidus woke me up, and I know Chassidus is going to wake him up as well. Choni sat down to eat a meal, and drowsiness overcame him. That is, as a result of the meal, he fell asleep by eating. He fell into a sleep commensurate with his spiritual level. It sometimes happens, he says, that a person is holding by the Torah, by Hibodedut, by Tikkun Chatzot, by the mikvah, and yet because he's still not rectified his eating, he falls asleep. So that was Choni. He had rectified all these different areas, but not his eating. And a grotto formed around him, meaning the aspect of circling and fantasies that kept going round and round at the time of his sleep. It covered him from sight so nobody knew, meaning people do not recognize that this guy is sleeping because they see he's a big tzaddik. But he really has an aspect of sleep. When he awoke, meaning there was an arousal from below, he did something to awaken himself. He noticed a man eating from the carob tree. That is, he saw him eating from the stories, and he was awoken by them. He said, do you know who planted that tree? That is, do you know from which time the story comes? Do you know how ancient the story is? He said, my grandfather, meaning I know these are the stories of Atik, they're very, very old. He said, surely I must have slept 70 years, meaning I fell from all 70 pages of the Torah. It is possible. It is possible. He saw his donkey, which had given birth to several generations of mules. We know that Yisachar was compared to a mule. Why? Because a mule can hold a very heavy load. Meaning what? He's a strong bone donkey, he has a lot of possessions. That's what Uncle says. He was very wealthy. And because he was very wealthy, he was able to hold on to very deep Torah. Meaning because of his deep stories, he was awoken. Because he was awoken, he was able to speak to Hashem. Because he was able to speak to Hashem, he was able to acquire Yira. Because he was able to acquire Yira, he was able to add Kedusha to his days. Because he was able to add Kedusha to his days, he merited wealth. And because he merited wealth, he merited the deepest parts of Torah. That is the whole Torah that we've done together. Does everybody understand what we've done? Okay, last part very again. Chazara. Yes. Rav Nachman is saying like this. I'm going to give you the opposite way the Torah gives you, because he starts from the goal. This is how he always does it. He starts from the goal, and he says, but you can't get it unless you do this. And he says, but you can't get that unless you do this. So I'm going to flip it. You need to start with Hibodedut. Hibodedut. Actually, no. Let's go back even further. You need to learn the Chassidus of the Tzaddik. Number one. Which is this, which is what we learn every night together. You need to be busy learning this. What's going to happen as a result? You're going to be inspired, and your mouth is going to open up, and you're going to be able to speak to Hashem from a place of Emunah. Not from chiluk in the heart, not from a division in the heart, but Emunah is going to increase from the truth of the Torah. Yes, then you're going to go do Hibodedut. You're going to learn this Torah at night, you're going to do Hibodedut during the day. What's going to happen from a result of that Hibodedut? Your Yira is going to increase. And I know this for a fact from my own experience. Every single time you do Hibodedut, it's like an onion. The middle of that onion is Yira Shlema. It's a Emunah Shlema. It's something that's so precious that we're working a whole life to get. Every single time you do Hibodedut, another level of that onion peels off. You get closer to real Yira, closer to real Yira. Every day you keep working, closer and closer.
That's the second part or the third part? Number
Third.
one is the other one is
Yeah.
second.
Second one is Hibodedu. This brings you to Yira. How do you show that you have this Yira and strengthen it? How do you use your money? Three levels. Three levels of using your money. One, I'm honest in business. That comes from Yira. A person cannot be honest in business and simple in business unless he has Yira. There's no reason to. It doesn't make sense according to nature. That I shouldn't try and... Doesn't make sense. I need to make money. I need to support my family. Whatever it is. Like, my boss comes to me and says to me, "Oh, you work this many hours, right? You get this much money, but you didn't really work that many hours. You shouldn't really get that much. This guy's a millionaire, though. What does it really mean to him?" That makes sense. But the Torah teaches you it's a huge issue. So only a person who has Yira is going to be honest in this situation, okay? Honesty in business, number one. Number two, that you do not use the money that you earn for yourself and your own physical gratification, but you use it for your wife and your kids. Yes. Not also. Not also. Not also. I know. That is we're talking about luxuries. What? Okay, so it's a level. But if your wife if your wife wants to go to dinner with you and you know she likes going to this place and you're doing it for her, it's good. I'm not telling listen, I'm not telling you this is not a level most people don't have. Most people are not doing these things. But I'm telling you it's a real thing. The more that you are focusing only on using your resources for spiritual growth yourself and physical growth of your family, wife and your kids, and whatever they need, the more everything is going to work out in your life. The more your year is going to grow, the more your moon is going to... You like that? Yeah. Okay, good. No, Rav Nachman says you have to give her those luxuries. Yeah, you have to. But you only have money for that if you're not doing it for yourself.
You can't get her the luxuries
unless you have a lot of money. But if you have a normal salary and she wants all these crazy stuff that she wants a $900 pair of shoes. Why does she want that? You think she wants this because she's materialistic. That's not the reason why. It's because Hashem is trying to get you to this level that you're not using money for yourself. So what does he do? He gives you a wife who makes it. You have no choice. You're either going to get divorced or you're going to make it work and all the money's going to go to her.
So you're saying basically it's a win-win for them.
Yeah.
Give it a black card.
It's not a pagam. It's not a pagam. That's what I'm teaching. No, it's not a pagam. It's not a pagam. It's to get the female out of you. It's to drive the female out of you. I'm telling you like this. It's every woman. It's not there are women. No, this is for us.
We'll break it down to myself.
Don't worry. You don't have to break it down. They don't need to know about this. This is for us. What? They're never going to be satiated because they're receivers. So what I'm telling you is it doesn't make a difference. It's not about them being satiated. That's their job. Their job is to receive from you. Your job is to give to them. No, it's only a problem when you're still having, and we all have this because we're raised like this, and because this is the first part of our life is only like this. We have a yes, because Rav Nachman says it's that part of you is a woman. Okay. You're not a woman. No. Yes, but that. Look, I listen.
A man, if a woman, just because they want to desire something
Listen.
expensive luxury,
Listen. She is not here for her tikkun. She's here for your tikkun. So how does she rectify you? By getting you to rid you of your selfishness completely. Completely. To be completely selfless. To tap into this aspect of yourself that is godly. That you should be like a Kadosh Baruch Hu, and that she should be like the Jewish people. It's a very serious avoda. I understand it's very hard to How is this fair? That's all coming from a desire to receive, which is fine. We all have it naturally. I'm telling you though, it's the Yetzer Hara. When you knock this thing off, you're gonna be so happy. No, it's her soul. Yeah, it's intrinsic in her soul to desire to receive. To make it very clear, you represent Zer Anpin. She represents Malchut. Zer Anpin is the 6 Sfirot, Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod. It's all giving. Giving. They don't receive anything. She is Malchut, is the receiver. She doesn't give anything to Zaz. It's to receive and to give over something better than it was. When you come to her, you're blemished. She makes you into a complete giver and turns you into a man.
And she can name 2, 3, 4 at the same time. Process.
Rabbi, what's the third one, Rabbi?
Wait, I need to clarify. This is a very important part. I myself am not like so physically inclined, okay? But there are stuff that I would spend for in the past. And it's very hard for me to stop spending on those little things because it's like, even this little, no, I can't have anything. I'm not gonna. Oh, so listen. This was a very hard point for me and I held on to it. As soon as I let it go, and my wife and my kids is where all my money. I'm not spending any money on myself except for spiritual things and whatever my wife says we need. You know, my apartment, my whatever. Our Shalom Bayit has been incredible. We're not fighting at all. She's helping me with my kids like totally. She is helping me learn all the time. She's like not in a way that was, why? Because she's mirroring me. Because I'm now allowing her to receive and I'm giving completely, she's helping me in my voda. What? Sounds like she's not doing much for me? No! She's not, it's not a conscious thing. This is not a conscious. Yes, she's getting you to eyeing. Nope. But I'm telling you, it's not that. It's not that. It's something very deep. When Rav Arush tells you that she's your mirror, and that when you work on yourself, her problem's going to be fixed. You're like, come on, that doesn't make sense. It's not real. Okay, Amuna, I believe in Amuna, but how is it that I work on myself, all of a sudden she gets better? So I'm explaining this is what it is. When you do exactly what you need to do, Rashi says very clearly, it's an open Rashi, she's going to help you. And when you don't do exactly what you need to do, she is going to be against you, which helps you to get back to that point. But what do? We resist it. But if you just let the female go inside of you, I'm telling you, you're going to be so happy. You're going to be so happy. Let her go. Let her go.
One question.
It's more than a man. Yes.
If a man can afford it, I'm totally for it. To give everything she wants. But I know a case of Robert she keeps spending to the point where the guy is in debt and he has wealth. How is that normal? And he's always depressed because of it.
Right. What's his spiritual life like?
Oh, he's religious.
No, I'm not saying is he religious. Is he working the game like you are? Does he come to learn at night? Does he learn during the day? Does he go to work? And
Very close to the Torah. I mean, he learns from the older people. He's older himself. He's like 10 years older than me.
yeah.
He's very close to the Torah, Shabbat, everything.
Okay, we need to talk more about this because.
How can you understand something like that?
Okay. I know people sitting at this table of the same exact situation. Okay.
The wife needs to have a half a brain. The wife needs to understand.
This Torah says it doesn't matter what you eat.
Listen.
If you understand that, you have to give.
But the wife has a half a brain. She'll say, okay, I'll do this.
It's not about. It's not like that.
I agree with you.
It's not like
But a
that.
reasonable woman will say, I don't need this, so I do need this. Right?
She doesn't say that. No, she doesn't, because she thinks. No, listen to me. A woman, listen. A woman feels that her wants. A woman feels that her wants are her needs. You understand? You're gonna tell her you don't need to get your nails done. She says, I don't want it. I need it. It's for my mental health. It's okay. Yes.
You're not supposed to tell her don't get your nails done.
Right.
Tell her go to the Asian woman and give her $5.
You're supposed to understand certain things that the husband can't give you. You should just, realize it.
And what if she doesn't? And what if she doesn't?
You're not playing hard enough.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying. There's something going on. There's something else going on. There's a spiritual thing that's lacking. I'm telling you right now. I know that it's hard to understand. I know it's hard to understand, okay? I'm telling you. Listen to what I'm telling you. I'm going to make it very simple. I'll make it very simple for you. Listen to what I'm saying. Listen. The moment of truth. You ready? The more, listen to me. Listen to me. The more you do what you need to do. The more you do what you need to do, the less your wife will ask for things and be a burden for you.
She's only a burden because you're not doing what you need to do. And she's trying to.
The less that you do exactly what you need to do, the more it's completely reciprocal. The less you're doing what you need to do, the more she's gonna be your problem. I'm telling you right now. I know guys. They go to work and they have let's say their bus driver, okay, or their cab driver, whatever. And the cab driver and him are swapping pictures of like naked chicks, right? Okay. They have no peace in their home, right? He finds out, he looks at the phone, whatever. He's like, she's paranoid. She's like giving me a hard time. Okay, so this guy sent me a pic I didn't ask for, I'm telling you right now, this guy does not have fences up for himself. And because he doesn't have fences up for himself, her paranoia is on fire. Why? Because he has a huge pagam. And as soon as his pagam goes, she's going to stop being paranoid. All of her inner turmoil is coming from your inner turmoil. I know that's very hard to believe, and I'm telling you it's a fact. It's a fact. The more that you do what you need to do, the more your wife is going to come. She's going to come. And I know it doesn't make any sense. You have to believe me. You have to believe me. You have to believe me. But not.
It does make sense.
Okay, whatever. He says he finishes and he makes a chazara. Okay, so
I gotta believe him because it doesn't make sense, and that's where Emunah comes.
yes.
What's the third part?
The third part is tzedakah. So you have the three things: honest in business. The money is not for you; it's for wife and kids. And tzedakah. So then when you have these three levels of wealth, that means that you have acquired real yira, and if you've acquired real yira, you're now going to be able to add kedusha to your days. You're going to be the Yirat Hashem, it's going to express itself in how you use your money, these three levels. If you have completely rectified your yira, it's going to show in these three things. If you're good on these three things, it means you have complete yira. Then with this yira, you're going to be able to add kedusha to your days. Learn more. Even when you're eating, you're going to add a little bit of Torah in there. You're going to get up a little bit earlier. You're going to go to sleep a little bit. Whatever it is, you're going to add more kedusha to your days. You can only do that when you have yira, because if you don't have yira, it doesn't make more sense. It doesn't make sense to add more than what you're doing. You're already doing so much. Okay, but when you have yira and you realize there's nothing else besides Hashem, this is the only thing that really matters, then you're going to be able to have the motivation to do it. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense to go speak to Hashem for hours a day. It's negligent. But when a person really comes, ain't milvado, it's not a slogan. It's in the Torah. It's a pasuk in the Torah. There's nothing else. It's just Hashem. Emunah. Okay, good. Then what happens? Then you're going to add kedusha to your days, and if you do this every day more and more, Rav Nachman says what's going to happen is you're going to become wealthy. Wealthy, not just spiritually, also physically. And then what's going to happen when you have spiritual and physical wealth? You are going to be able to understand the deepest revelations of Torah. Boom. That's the Torah. Any other questions? Go ahead.
I think what's being ignored here is the fact that there may be an underlying issue with let's just say the woman, right, as an example, who's overbuying and has this compulsive disorder, to just overbuying.
Her compulsive disorder is coming from your compulsive disorder. It doesn't mean that.
Compulsive disorder is the man.
So I'm telling you. I'm explaining. It doesn't mean you have the desire to spend, and therefore, because you haven't rectified that, she has that. It means you have that issue somewhere else.
Whoa.
You have a pagam somewhere. You have a pagam. You have a pagam somewhere. When you rectify your blemishes, that thing is gonna be taken care of.
But yeah, again, I don't think that his scenario sucks.
Again, we don't know what this guy's deal is, okay? And we just don't know. You can't know what's really going on with the person. A person, I'm just telling you, I'm not saying anything about this person. A person can go and he can learn, and he can pray, and he can rap tefillin, and he can learn, and he can do all these things. Rav Nachman says he could be mamish sleeping because he's giving into his taivas, because he's wasting seed, because he's eating gluttonously, whatever, all these things.
But he has time.
Okay, thank you. There you go. That's it. Good. Done. Enough said. Good. Yes, next.
I have a question.
Yes.
You said the two types of difficulty in Muna? You said the two types of difficulty in Muna, right?
Everybody, listen.
So the first step of difficulty in Muna, you said is whatever I have to whatever I would get.
That's it. That was an
That
example.
was one? Okay. What's the second one?
Questions you can't ever answer.
Questions you can't ever answer?
Yes. Why do bad things happen to good people?
I have a feeling. What was the first one?
The first one is questions that are difficult to answer, but they are answerable. The other is things that you just can't answer right now until Mashiach comes.
Also, how do
Take
I
it.
learn? How do I learn the machloket? What do I learn the machloket of the?
You have to learn the Shulchan Aruch.
Right.
So what you do is you get a copy of, you get a book, get the Orach Chaim, get halacha that you're interested in learning, and get the Shulchan Aruch in it, not the Kitzur, the real one, and you read Hebrew, no?
They have it.
I know they don't, but I'm just saying I thought you were Hebrew. Okay, with the commentaries.
Can you give me the name book, whatever I want to do?
Yeah, I'll post it in the group after, okay? I'll post it in the group after. If you guys want and you're serious about it, I wouldn't mind adding it to the class. I know we don't have a lot of time. We'll figure it out. Maybe like 10, 15 minutes. We do it. Whatever. We already kind of do it with the Likutei Halachot, but I can add more of like the halacha aspect of it, where we're doing the different shitas. Okay? We can do it. Just learn. But on your own, you can do this very easily. It doesn't take long. Take 10 minutes a day and do this. Okay, good. So that's good. 10 minutes a day. Yes, go ahead.
We're learning in this Torah that you need wealth in order to try to have some Torah.
Yes.
Right? So we see with
Guys, listen.
with how relationships work. She may be working with you or against you.
Yes.
When it's the with you aspect, it means you're doing what you need to do. You're revealing Torah to her. But when you're not, then she's gonna take the wealth from you. Okay? Got it there? So either way, it's still one concept. You choose whichever way you want it to be, and the woman is there to reflect that.
Yes. By the way, like a woman, she sees her husband every day, like working on growing and becoming more pure and becoming more simple. He's not. She feels that, and he's not talking to women. And he's got blocks on his. Even if she doesn't do this, she watches movies. She's watching this. She sees you like how holy you are. And he's doing good. I'm gonna leave him alone. You know? It's a very deep thing. I don't know how to explain it. Your wife could be watching Netflix and watching all these movies with sex and all these things, but she sees you that you come home after a whole day of working and doing things for your kids, and she sees that you open your book and you're learning, and you're like, I have to go do Ipoh to do all these things. She's like, and this is good. I can't do anything like this. Because she's there to lift you up. Okay, you're good.
I have another question for you. Because there are some women like this.
Yes, I'm telling you, it's a real thing.
There
Yeah.
are some women like this, and I'm sure it's very popular amongst society now, that women feel like they need to work to help. Is there a thing? Is there something?
It's not a problem.
It's not a problem. It's not an issue.
It's not a problem. Not a problem. She needs to feel, just like we need to feel. That's a sense of accomplishment, a sense of worthiness, a sense of fulfillment. You know, we're not in a generation that we were taught you're gonna get Olam Haba if you let your husband learn all day. Our wives didn't learn that growing up. They learn you have to have a career and you have to be successful, and all of a sudden we're learning Your Olam Haba is not coming from that at all. It's coming from you letting me learn. She didn't learn that her whole life. It's a very hard pill to swallow. It takes time to adjust. I mean, I told my wife. She said to me like, I feel that like I see people succeeding and I'm home taking care of the kids. And I said it's so chaval. I said I'm not arguing with you. I understand. I can't imagine what that would be like. I'm home with the kids for an hour and I'm losing my mind. So I'm with you. Okay. Okay. But how chaval is it that the whole goal, the epitome of what you reach tzaddiket level of a woman, you're doing that and you feel like you're wasting your time and you haven't fulfilled your. I said that's like chaval. It's very chaval. It's very sad. That's what society does to you. She grew up modern Orthodox. This is the whole point. You get the secular wisdom mixed with the Judaism, has a very deep damage to you. Very deep damage.
Basically, you want to marry an Amish girl. Mamish.
You just got to get your kids in the most Haredi school you can find and give it up, man.
That costs Haredi money.
Yes, and it goes.